It is Emmy season. I'm Riley Chow, and Marshall Adams is here with me, and he is in contention for the show Servant on Apple TV Plus. The cinematography categories actually have a bit of a different nominating procedures than all the other ones at the Emmys. So you're going to submit a 4-minute clip from one of your 4 episodes that a panel is going to judge. So I'm wondering if you know what clip of Servant you're submitting.
Yeah, I sure do. It's from episode 4, the episode that I did season 2, episode 4 that I did with Knight. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a little while since I went through it, but I think I literally started right from the beginning. Our opening shot was a very difficult setup. We craned up a set of steps with Dorothy and around a corner, and so it was a very tricky shot. It was actually the first shot I ever did with Knight, so I was really proud of it. And it continues up into the attic, which we introduced for the first time in the show. So I definitely wanted to take advantage of that. So yeah, that was it. The first 4 minutes, I think, of the episode.
And what did you try to show when you were going into the attic for the first time? And what did you want to keep hidden, I guess, for later?
Well, that was actually more. I wasn't really aware of the fact that Knight had that plan, that there was more to kind of layers to reveal, but there was so much in the way of layers of dressing that that we're going to get unpacked as the episode progressed and as the season progressed. That it was very easy, and also the main source of light in there in the daytime for sure was just those 2 front windows that kind of faced out onto the street. So it was an easy thing to keep it contrasty and full of life, and reveal stuff kind of as we went along. So it was an interesting. I'm just really glad that I got to be the first one to shoot it and kind of set the look and the style of that room. Speaking of.
You actually worked with 4 different directors, I believe, on your episodes. And like M. Night Shyamalan, he actually is show running the show. He's kind of shepherding the directors as they come in. And I've read a lot about how he really encourages them to kind of storyboard everything. So I'm wondering what's your involvement in that process?
I was heavily involved in all of it from the very beginning. We actually, it was Isabella Eckloff, who was the second director that I worked with. She and I not only storyboarded, but we actually went through the whole show from front to back and photographed it. So we had every frame literally photographed on the set, because that can be the one thing that can get a little tricky with storyboards. Is they don't necessarily always contain the set dressing or the relationships of things exactly the way they are. So leaves a little bit to the imagination. So it really kind of nailed it down, and we adapted it a little bit from there. But it was nice to have a map of exactly what shot we were going to next, and where the story was going. So yeah, and I would say pretty much the same with Ashana, and I'm trying to remember what he did on 9. I think we actually storyboarded that one, back to the storyboard. So, we shot like a lot of it out of sequence too, with the coke break in the middle and stuff too. So, yeah, we did. I did 4 and 6, and then 9. No, 10, then 8, then 9. So it was a little crazy on the way it was kind of came together at the end there because of scheduling conflicts.
I feel like that's highly unusual. The excessive, or not excessive, but such in-depth storyboarding and then photographing. Is that something that you have a lot of experience with?
Some. I mean, it's something that we do on Saul a bit too, on Better Call Saul, because it's important that that we have a plan for one, and that we know exactly where the visuals are going. And also, oftentimes we pitch ideas visually. So that's part of the process too. So it's important that we have a plan, and especially with a show that's as visual as Saul is, or on Servant too, that we have to know where we're going next if we really want to be efficient and be able to kind of move through it at a typical schedule, because we don't get any more time just because we're dark and have crazy wide visual shots. It is, you have to work within the schedule. So it's important to us to kind of make the most out of every moment that we have, for sure.
Yeah, let's take a moment to talk about Better Call Saul. First of all, where are you right now?
I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we are scouting a location for one of the episodes that we're working on right now.
That's great. And have you read the script for the series finale?
I have not.
You're not.
I, no, no, no. They play that stuff kind of close to the vest, and yeah, I have no idea what's going on or where to go, where it goes, next really, other than the episodes that I've done so far.
Going back to Servant, Mike Kulakis, he shot the first season, did the first couple episodes of the second season. What did you observe about the kind of visual aesthetic that he had established?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I liked Mike's lighting approach, and his visuals were very similar in a lot of ways to stuff that I had been doing on Saul too. So very kind of symmetrical, wide stuff, or either that or the other direction. Clearly, asymmetrical. But yeah, no, it's he had very similar styles, and I loved his lighting approach to it. So I adapted, pretty much everything that Mike had kind of laid out, which was it was a great roadmap for the rest of the show, and I still think it is. I mean, the work that he did on season 1 was fantastic, and really gave that, not only the characters but the location its own personality in a lot of ways. That was really important to the aesthetic of the show, I think, and the visuals and to the creepiness and how it kind of develops, and you see this stuff revealed, layer by layer. It was really, really nice. So I was really happy to see it, and I think he just did a fantastic job. So.
Sometimes the craft of a show or a film, people think it's better to kind of have it be invisible. Whereas I feel like your cinematography is a lot more fun, a lot more showy, actually. Can you talk about your style, from Better Call Saul to Servant, how you're kind of really expressing yourself?
Well, I mean, I hope it's not showy. I try really hard to make sure. I mean, it's, we do some very specific style visuals, and they can call it a little bit too much attention to themselves for my own taste sometimes. But I mean, it's a lot of fun. I try never to shoehorn. It's always got to be driven by the story. That's our rule on Saul, for sure. It's got to be driven by story. You don't want to ever set up a shot because it looks cool. So as long as it's anchored in that and makes sense, I try really hard not to shoehorn, like, dark, edgy lighting into a location into a hospital location or something like that, where it makes absolutely no sense. So it's a fine line, because like you say, it can, the show has very specific visuals, and we love doing them. So I don't ever want to feel like I've crossed that line to look at me, look at my frames, aren't they cool? Because that's not a place I'd like to go. It all has to be driven by the story, and that's where it's all about for me. I think for all of it, all aspects of it. If you feel like you've run out of ideas, that's what I always find. If I feel like I don't have an idea for a specific, or something changes and we need to come up with a new idea visually, always just go back to the script, and within a few minutes something will reveal itself, or talk it through with the director, and you can always come up with something fun and new, but it's all, that's driven by story.
I think people love to talk about your shots, though. Like, I don't think there's more discussion about the cinematography on for any show that's on the air right now than Better Call Saul.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say so. I wonder if you have any theories as to why there's a disconnect from that discourse to the Emmys, where you haven't been nominated for Better Call Saul yet.
I honestly have no idea. I mean, it could be just, it could be a difference in opinion as to what kind of what I think drives great visuals, versus what the nominating committee likes to see. So, I mean, honestly, I have no idea. I've submitted every year, and I mean, it's not about awards anyway, as much as I would love to be nominated, and I appreciate it. But it's for us, it's about doing the best work we can, and if people like it, great. If they don't, that's okay too. It's all you can do is the work that you would like to see somewhere else potentially. That stuff that makes you happy and that you like to do. So that's what we try to keep it fresh and as simple as possible too.
In your submitted episode this year, that 2 o'clock episode, the fourth one from the second season, it kind of climaxes in this burial scene that's shot in a specific way with a very long take from kind of behind the staircase. Can you tell me about the decision making for that shot?
That was all night, and funny enough, that was one of the only shots that we kind of varied from the storyboards that we had. He had that idea a few days before we shot it, and we went and looked at it on the Finder and made sure that it felt like it was going to work and that we could really tell the story, because it was there was a lot to tell there. We had to bring her out, we had to dig her up, we had to see everybody's reaction, and Dorothy's kind of stoic non-involvement. But it laid out beautifully, and that was all him. I thought I loved the idea, and it really worked well. So I mean, I love when you can play a story out in a single shot like that, and it makes sense, and it's not you don't have to necessarily cut it right around and see all of the close-ups, all of the weight is carried in that one shot. And even sometimes it's even better not to see some of those reactions, just in a body posture. So I thought it was absolutely genius of him to do that, and it just worked out so well.
What about earlier in the episode? There's a scene with Sean and Julian sitting at the breakfast table, and it's really, over. It's kind of a bird's eye view of the table. Can you tell me about what went into that one?
It was again, it was while we were storyboarding, I went out there and walked around on the set and looked at it, and he kind of had an idea of something low. Originally, we were talking about that reflection shot in the wine glass, being the opening for the scene, and that led into that high angle, because we needed to be high to get that reflection shot to work. So the two kind of fed into each other, and with the wine bottle knocking over, and it seemed like it just played out really well. And he kind of almost looking down into the basement, you could hear the basement underneath and the guys with the jackhammer, and it was one of those things that just kind of all of a sudden revealed itself, and we both thought it was great. So again, he's a great collaborator that way, and that's why it was such a natural fit. I felt like from here on Saul to that show, because in a lot of ways visually they're very story driven both, and so as long as you can find a great way to tell that story, and visually it's a great way to go.
Yeah, and finally, can you tell me about going from the vistas of Better Call Saul to the more confined spaces on that set of Servant?
Yeah, that is an interesting adjustment. I mean, I'm so used to, being in New Mexico, where I have these incredible vistas. I mean, you can look up and the skies are phenomenal, everywhere you look, So it was the claustrophobia of being in that house for all of it, pretty much, and I think we went out, maybe probably did 4 scenes or 5 scenes, maybe all year long, that were outside of the house. And again, we're only on the front porch practically. But I mean, it was part of it's, again, it's part of the story. It's part of what drives that show and keeps it claustrophobic. And, you almost feel like you want to take a breath. And I noticed all the directors tonight, especially, really kind of stifles that in some ways, until it feels like you want to finally let the audience breathe. It's an important part of the way that thing develops, and kind of keeping the pressure on, keeps the pressures on everybody in the house. So the pressure should be on the audience too, to and to watching it to a certain extent. So it worked really well, and it was. It took me a little while to kind of get used to, but I very quickly I realized how important it was as to the development of the story. So again, I welcomed it with open arms.
Well, Marshall, we all want to see the rest of Better Call Saul, so I should let you get back to work. And thanks for taking the time to chat with Gold Derby today.
You got it, man. My pleasure. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thanks so much for having me.